there, my name is Michael Maynard and welcome back to Gorilla Picking. Now, got a really interesting lock on the bench here. It is a thing called a Robur, R-O-B-U-R, safety deposit lock. So it is it's a sort of a watered down version of an Assa Twin. But I've got to say, it's not really that watered down. So it's a 5-pin lock, so it's got 5 pins up the top, and it's got a sidebar on the side with 4 sliders. And I've got to say, the design and the pinning of this lock is such that if I didn't know what was in this and how it was pinned up, I probably actually wouldn't be able to pick it. So we're going to talk about that in some detail. The way that this is pinned up at the moment is as a brown belt lock. So it's got 4 standard pins, 1 gin right at the front in position 1, and so that's a pretty easy pinning, okay? But in actual fact, if I didn't know that gin was there, I probably wouldn't be able to deal with this, eh? So let's go through it, let's open it, and let's sort of see what's inside and see what makes it tricky. We're going to need fairly good tension control, so I'm using a homemade, this is my tension tool that I use for picking almost all twins. And the first thing we're going to do is put some clockwise tension on there and see if we've got anything on the sidebar binding. Yeah, we do, pin 2. I've noticed that sometimes with this lock something binds on that sidebar, sometimes things don't. But yeah, now there's nothing binding there, so we can probably go and start picking the top pins. So we're getting a little tiny click on 3. Okay, so 2's a binder. Got a lot of movement, but not much of a click out of that. Little tiny click on 1. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Click on 2. Click on 1, little click on 5, big click on 3, so we've finally got something happening. There was just my pick slipping off. 5 a click, 4 a click. Now these are all crunchy, and these are standard pins I'm picking at the moment, but the chambers that they're in are counter milled. So here we go, click and finally a turn on pin 5. And pretty much okay. The only thing that's springy now, or at least moving, is pin 1, and because I know pin 1 is a gin, we can either decide to pick it now or we can decide to pick it later. I'm actually going to pick it later, I think. So I'm in what amounts to at the moment a false set. I haven't got all the 5 top pins picked, but I'm going to have a look now at the sidebar. Yep, 1's a binder, 4's a binder. Got a click and a turn there, so we're now either in false or true gates. 1's a binder again. 2 feels set. Click on 4 again. 3's in a false gate. Now that's interesting. False gates have 2 different feels on this lock. They can either be rock solid or they can move a bit and be a little bit graunchy. Here we go. Whack on the tension. Okay, 1's dropped. It's in a false gate. Now, again, this is something that I know because I've picked this a couple of times now, but pins 1 and 4, or at least sliders 1 and 4, need to be set very high, higher in fact than my flag can go. And so what I'm actually needing to do is over rotate the flag, if you like, rotate it vertically and then push it up even further. Much the same happened with 4 there. Okay, so where are we? 1 feels set, 2 feels set, 3 has dropped, 3's in a false gate. Back to 1, dropped yet again. Two, three, dropped again. It's the usual story, eh? 3 steps forward, 2 steps back with these things. Okay, 1's feeling good, 2's feeling good, 3's feeling good, 4 a click, it's in a false gate. Okay, we're getting somewhere. We're still not in, I don't think we've got the sidebar. Oh no, 4's in yet another false gate. Ah, there we go. See that big click and a turn? That's now got the sidebar picked. So we've got the 4 standard pins at the top picked, we've got the sidebar picked, and now because I so happen to know that pin 1's a gin, it's relatively easy now to open this lock. So we're just stuck on a gin. So let's find it. We've got 1 rock solid, 5 rock solid, 4 rock solid, 3, 2, and 1. There's our gin that needs setting. Going to need to counter rotate that almost all the way back. Trying very carefully not to drop anything here. And we're open. So that was easy because I've done it a couple of times, but it wasn't easy because it was an easy lock, guys. Anything but, in fact. So let's pull it apart and show you just what the innards of this thing look like and why I think it's so good. We have got a pretty standard tailpiece on the back here that can go over there. We do have the key so we can pull it apart nice and easily, and let's just be a bit careful, making sure that we don't lose sidebar springs. Okay, so here are our top pins. Now let's just dump those out for a start. So by top I mean top key pin, you know what I mean. And there's number 5. So I guess pretty important to have a look at that and see that those are all counter milled chambers. So each one of those has got the little counter mill serration type things that we know and love from Assa locks. Now let's get these sidebar elements out of there, and not terribly difficult, these things. We've got a pretty standard sidebar there, familiar to everybody that's picked an Assa style lock. We've got 2 springs there making the sidebar do its job, and then we've got these 4 slider elements down the bottom. So if we just withdraw this key, get in there and get those springs out of there, we can then have a look at these sidebar slider elements, and again they'll be very familiar to anybody who's picked in an old school twin. So that was number 1, there's number 2, there's number 3, and there's number 4. Let's just dump their springs, don't really need those now. So yeah, just to go back to what I was saying about this core, guys, we've got all 5 chambers here counter milled, and I know, because I've pulled this lock apart before, that we had a gin to pick in position number 1, alright, but these come with several different styles of pinning. So some have got 1 gin, some have got a few barrel pins, some have got more than 1 gin, and the feedback on these is such that if I didn't know that they were gins in there, I would genuinely have a hard time figuring out how to pick these top pins. Just on that note, the keyway on this is a pretty interesting wee keyway as well. It is pretty wide open, as all these things seem to be, but you actually need to pick it from the bottom, and it's just a tiny bit off centre. You might call that paracentric if you liked. And so the pick that I usually use for Assa Twins is a thicker Peterson pick. I very much like the Peterson hook number 5 in 18 thou, but you actually can't use that here. You've got very good feel with that pick, but what I needed here was a much thinner pick, because you need to pick from the bottom of the keyway, and so this, I don't know, whatever it is, you know, the thinnest of the Peterson picks anyway, hook number 7, is what I needed. Alright, now just onto these driver pins. Funny little things they are, eh? Let's just get my watch out of the way here. We are going to see that number 1 is the gin, if it's not pinging out. There it is there. And then the rest of these are standards. The springs are quite strong in these things, but the little drivers themselves are tiny, eh? They're almost like master pins really in any other lock. There's another tiny little one, and number 5 finally. There it is there, and all the springs can get dumped. So there we go, guys. A really interesting lock, very good quality. Very tricky, because if you're picking this on the bench, you've seen the inside of it, you've pulled it apart, you know what you're dealing with, you know, and you know that you're going to have a little gin here to get round. But if you were trying to pick one of these in the wild and you didn't have prior knowledge of what was in there, I reckon this would actually be a bloody good little lock. So it definitely gets the Gorilla seal of approval. So there you go, folks. Just to summarise it, nice lock, not as difficult as an Assa Twin, but there again, it's got one less top pin and one less sidebar pin as well. The sidebar, a relatively easy one to open. I used my Spooks flag. I use this for 99.9% of all of the sidebars I pick. And the one trick with that, the feel that you get from this thing is absolutely fantastic. You know exactly where you are with these. Binding pins feel like binding pins, and set pins feel like set pins. But you do sometimes need to lift a pin further up than the flag is actually able to reach, and so what you've got to do is both turn it to 90 degrees and push it up a little bit further. So if you're trying to pick one of these and you're going round and round and round in circles, my guess is that you're probably not actually lifting one of these pins far enough. So that's what you need to know about the sidebar. And then what you needed to know about picking these top pins was, number 1, you're going to need fairly good tension control to do it. So you're going to need a bespoke tension tool really that you can jam in there. Number 2, you're going to need a fairly thin pick, because you're going to need to go from the very bottom of the keyway. So a good quality pick is pretty much essential for this one. And then finally, because if you've got gins in there, you don't quite know exactly what you're dealing with, you may well find that you fall into a deep false set with those top pins that you don't really understand, and unless you know exactly where those security pins, those gins are, then you might just have to do a whole lot of experimentation. Basically just find the false set, try one, see if that picks, lose everything, try the next one, and just use a process of elimination. So there it is, folks. Thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I certainly enjoyed picking it, and I hope you learned something. Thanks, folks. Leave comments below if you're interested. See ya.